Hello, Year 7, and welcome to another lesson with me, Mr. Arrow. Today, we are discussing fetus development. So, obviously, after reproduction and the fertilization of a female egg with a sperm cell, okay, you then have the development of a fetus, and eventually a child is born. We're going to discuss how that fetus develops, what happens to it, and then at the end, you're also going to have a chance to practice some of your graphing skills as well. Okay, so we're just going to dive on into this lesson today, and by the end of it, I would like, hopefully, for you to be able to tell me and describe what happens during gestation and birth. So, we're going to quickly talk about some of the key words today, what they mean and what they look like. So the first one obviously is gestation, because we've just talked about gestation and it's part of your learning objective, but I don't know whether many of you would have heard that word before. Gestation is basically the time in the uterus from fertilization to birth. So it's the time it takes for the egg and that sperm cell to develop and eventually then a child or children be born if you're having more than one child. So that takes around 9 months. I almost said 90 months. That would be a worry. It takes around 9 months or 40 weeks. Okay, so gestation around 9 months or 40 weeks. Or if you want to talk to your mother about it, I'm sure she would probably say forever. Sorry, that was just a little bit of a joke. Then we come on to our next keyword, placenta. So placenta is an organ where substances pass between the mother's blood and the fetus's blood. Okay, so before you're born, you're obviously a fetus. So the placenta, it's an organ where substances pass between the mother's blood and the fetus's blood. We'll have a look a bit more detail at the placenta a bit later on in this lesson. The umbilical cord connects the fetus to the placenta. So I imagine you've probably heard of cutting the umbilical cord. So when you are born, you're still connected to your mother and the umbilical cord needs to be cut. And where your umbilical cord was attached, you guys call your belly button. So that was where you were connected to your mother. We've got the fluid sac, okay, or the amniotic sac, and it basically protects the fetus from any bumps. So obviously, mother's still going around and doing lots of things while she's pregnant. So the fluid sac, it protects that fetus from any bumps. Uterus. So this is what basically the placenta looks like. So remember, it's an organ and it is controlling the nutrients and oxygenated blood traveling into the fetus. So the red is the oxygenated blood, so that is traveling into the fetus. So it carries oxygen and food from the placenta to the fetus in order for that fetus to develop and grow and eventually be a fully developed fetus and then be born to a child. But you've also got to take waste product away from that fetus. So you've also got waste products, so carbon dioxide and waste products, and they're carried away from the fetus to the placenta. Okay, so we're going to actually have a look at a bit more detail at what that looks like. So carbon dioxide and waste products move from the fetus's blood to the mother's blood, and then oxygen and food move from the mother's blood to the fetus's blood. Okay, and that's what it looks like. Okay, we're now going to have a look at the development of the embryo, because there's quite a number of stages to the development of the embryo. Okay, I'm going to start at about 4 weeks. So at about 4 weeks, the embryo is just 2 millimeters long. So if you look at a ruler and look at a centimeter, it is a fifth of that centimeter. They are absolutely tiny, this embryo. Okay, its heart is as big as a poppy seed and has begun beating. Okay, the embryo is surrounded by a membrane called the amnion, and it's that sac that contains the liquid which protects and cushions the embryo. And obviously that sac develops. Amnion, and obviously becomes then the amniotic fluid later on. Okay, so that's 4 weeks, just 2 millimeters big. Then jump up to 8 weeks. So the embryo is now called a fetus, and it is 2 centimeters long and has the main human features. So it's got all the nerves, the organs, the muscles of fetus, and they're beginning to function. And it also have eyelids forming at 8 weeks. Okay, but you're still only 2 centimeters long. Then go to 3 months. Now the fetus at 3 months is about 7 centimeters long, and all of its body parts are in place from tooth buds to toenails. So you've got tooth buds and you've got toenails at 3 months when you are a fetus. So your fingers and toes are separated, and the fetus is beginning to kick and stretch. So at about 3 months, mother and anyone who's touching that belly should be able to feel the fetus starting to kick, stretch, and move around. Then move on to 5 months. So the fetus is now about 15 centimeters long. It's starting to swallow and to make urine. It might have hair sprouting, and it's got nerve cells for all the senses that are starting to develop. Even further, and we've got 7 months. Now the fetus is about 30 centimeters long. So its eyes can open and close. It sleeps and wakes at regular intervals, and its brain is very active at this time. Okay. And then lastly, at 39 weeks, the fetus is about 50 centimeters long and continues to build the fat stores that it needs. All of its organ systems are fully developed, although its lungs will develop last. Okay, and as you can see, it is in the position ready to be birthed head first. Okay, so those were the development of a fetus. Now, what does the fetus need for development, and where does it obtain these? Pause the video and have a go at answering that question. Okay, the fetus relies upon its mother as it develops. It needs protection in the form of that amniotic fluid, and also physically just from the mother not knocking around the child too much. It needs oxygen where it gets from the mother, and it needs nutrients, so food and water. Also, you could have put down, which would have been an absolutely incredible answer, it also needs its waste substances to be removed. So that carbon dioxide, but also other waste products. So there we go. Protection. It's got the fluid-filled bag, amniotic sac, and that helps protect. Also, obviously, what other substances can pass across the placenta to the fetus? Smoke, medicine, drugs, and alcohol, which is all why it's very important that mothers don't smoke, don't do drugs, and try not to drink alcohol during pregnancy, because they can all transfer across to the fetus. So we're going to do some graphing practice now. Okay, so we're going to hopefully do some these numbers here and have a go at recording numbers. Otherwise, try doing this and going through that there. Okay, next we've got the length of the baby and the weeks of pregnancy. I've put them in here for you if you weren't able to do that. So I've gone up in 50 every second dark blue line. If you obviously you can go up in 25s as well. So if you see on my plain piece of paper, I've gone up in 25s. Then I've marked on my points, my 5 points they gave us, and then I've put in a line of best fit. And you notice it's a curved line of best fit. It's not a straight line of best fit. Your answer to where does the baby develop the fastest is between the 14 weeks and between the 20 weeks. So 14 to 20 weeks. And there you go. That's what it looks like there. So I hope you managed to draw your graph. If you want, have a go at marking. Make sure you've done all of those things. Oh, I forgot to say, I've obviously put a title in my graph. My title was the length of baby during development. So have a go. Give yourself a mark. Obviously, hopefully you managed to get that. That was just a bit of graphing practice for you. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. And as always, Year 7, stay safe and take care of yourselves.